Today's a very special day for me. April 26th, a man by the name of Marcus Aurelius was born. Now, it's taken a great deal of effort on my part not to share a Marcus Aurelius quote every time I make a Daily Bread video. There is just so much wisdom in the meditations of Marcus Aurelius, so much practical, no bullshit advice, and advice that works, or at least that works for me. I still remember the first time I read the meditations of Marcus Aurelius shortly after my cubicle epiphany. Now, maybe the fact that I was already primed after having this very profound experience, maybe that's why I fell in love with Marcus Aurelius the way I did. Maybe I would have fallen in love with any book I read directly after that experience. We'll never know now. What I do know is that I'm not the only one alive and, historically speaking, who has fallen in love with the character of Marcus Aurelius, with the words, the advice, the innermost thoughts that he recorded in his journal, and which by great fortune has made its way thousands of years down the line into the hands of people like you and me. It truly is remarkable to read the innermost thoughts of the world's most powerful man at the time, the most powerful human being at that time, politically speaking. And here we are with his personal journal right in the palm of our hands. He wrote this never intending to publish it and never intending to share it with others. By all accounts, it was his personal book of reminders. And as you may have surmised, these videos that I put out every day is sort of the same thing for me, a way for me to create reminders for myself. Now, of course, you get to listen in on these reminders in the same way we get to all listen into Marcus Aurelius as he reminds himself of the things that are important to him, as he reminds himself of how he ought to behave, the ideals and the virtues and the goals that he has set for himself. You get to read about how he defines justice and how he defines wisdom and what it means to him to live a good life. And there are so many passages in this book, so many lines that just resonate, and you just feel the truth in your bones when you read it. It's pretty awesome. Now, for me, again, after having my cubicle epiphany and experiencing this sudden transformation to my entire world, I realized, as I've mentioned before, that there was a lot more power in perspective than I had originally believed. Because this shift, this transformation that happened to me was not a physical, outward transformation, but rather a psychological, internal transformation. So afterwards, as I started doing research and looking for things that might give me more information about this very bizarre experience, I came upon Stoic philosophy and quickly realized that a historical figure that I had always been fascinated with, Marcus Aurelius, had written one of the foundational books of Roman Stoicism. And so I picked it up, and within a few moments I read a line. Consider that everything is opinion, and opinion is in your power. Take away then, when you choose, your opinion, and like a sailor who has doubled the promontory, you will find calm, everything stable, and a waveless bay. When I first read that line, it was like it hit me right smack in the forehead. Like, of course, it's so simple. And it's true. I mean, you can talk about facts all you want. You can talk about this is a fact, and factually speaking and truthfully speaking, you can say stuff like that. You can feel it in your heart. You can mean it. But ultimately, all you're doing is spouting off an opinion. There is no way to verify the factualness or the truthfulness of any proposition. You can do so in a limited way. You can prove that for now it stands true, that for now it's a fact, but it's always just waiting to be disproved. And so for me, that statement, everything is opinion, and opinion is in your power, well, couldn't agree more. It's funny, when I first read that, it was like I had already sort of been toying with that idea because I had been working in construction. I'd been doing these really intensive, dirty jobs, demolition work. And I remember at one point I was ready to snap. I was in a 3-foot tall crawl space, bent over, wielding a 60-pound jackhammer and trying to chip away at this concrete slab. And then I would grab all the rubble and I'd put it in these 5-gallon buckets and I would empty out the buckets. I'd walk through the homeowner's house and I would go out through the backyard and I would dump these buckets out. And I did this for 8 hours the first day. And within 2 hours, I was ready. I was ready to quit. I was ready to go back to college for a third time, even though I knew that wasn't a good option for me. But I was getting desperate. And in that pit of darkness that I was in, that grim sense of depression, of having no escape, I suddenly realized something. I realized that the only thing that differentiates demolition work from something like finished carpentry is my opinion of it. I remember thinking to myself, it's not the physical labor that's turning me off demolition work, because I go to the gym every day. And it certainly isn't the fact that I'm getting dirty because, well, it's construction work. You always get dirty. So I figured the only thing left is my opinion. I'm of the opinion that demolition work sucks. And so when I have to do demolition work, I react accordingly. I react like it sucks. And then I start to hate my life. And I realized this, and it was a pretty big moment for me because I started to toy with this idea and I started to experiment. I started playing Jedi mind tricks on myself. This is not the job you think it is. Well, lo and behold, it worked. It made demolition work and tasks that I had previously despised far more bearable. Now, I wasn't enjoying them, but I was still enjoying them a whole lot more than I used to. And I think this was in the back of my mind as I read Marcus Aurelius, because he's telling me the same thing here. He's saying it's your opinion, and guess what? You have the power to wipe that opinion away at any time. And then what happens when you do that? Well, he tells you in a really, really cute metaphor. When you wipe your opinion away, it's like you've just rounded the peninsula, and now you're in the calm waters of the bay. Right? Before you rounded the corner, it was choppy seas. But then you turned the corner and you entered calm waters. Well, that's what happens when you get rid of your opinion. When you just throw it aside and stop clinging to it. It's like you enter a calm space and you realize just how disturbing your opinions are. Holy shit. Your opinions, your beliefs, your assumptions, your expectations, all of these things are just lying just underneath the surface, and you can barely detect them, but they have such an influence on you and on me and on all of us. They are the causes of our temper tantrums and long, dark depressions. We start to believe that we're unworthy, that we are not good enough, that we are in a dead-end job, or that we're not progressing quickly enough, or that we aren't exactly where we wanted to be at this age. We start telling ourselves these stories and believing in them, and like a self-fulfilling prophecy, they become true. They become true. That's just one line from Marcus Aurelius that blew my mind completely right out of the water when I first read it. And it doesn't sound that crazy. It doesn't sound that novel. It's not like he was saying something earth-shattering. All his opinion. But if you've never heard it, and if you've never considered it, or if you're in the right frame of mind and you've had it with your suffering, then maybe those words, though they are simple, will be enough to snap you out of it and to make you realize just how much of your life and how much of your problems are based in your opinion only. And when you get rid of your opinion, you'll see that it was never a problem at all. Now, there's a lot of other things about Marcus Aurelius and the Meditations that I love. The fact that he talks about nature and the universe the same way theists talk about God. And, of course, I also love the fact that Marcus Aurelius recognizes the core concept of the self with a capital S. He talks about the ruling principle, this thing that rules from within you. And The way he describes it in many passages is reminiscent of how the Hindus describe the Atman in the Upanishads and in the Bhagavad Gita. We're talking about cultures that were separated by time and space and had no contact with each other, and yet through meditations and through philosophy, Marcus Aurelius was able to discover that indwelling spark of divinity. Marcus was my first exposure to that kind of spirituality and that kind of concept of divinity. I had never thought that it was possible to be spiritual without some belief in an anthropomorphic god, an invisible, bearded sky daddy. And so here's Marcus Aurelius talking about nature and God and the divine reason, the logos. And it filled me with so much awe and reverence because yes, finally, here's something that I can relate to that aligns with my experiences and informs me in a way that is productive and positive. Marcus Aurelius was a pantheist. He saw God in everything and everything in God. And he talks about it many, many times in the Meditations. And this was my first introduction to pantheism, and it's something that is a part of my philosophy because I too recognize that there is divinity in nature, and nature is itself divine. It creates, it destroys, it blesses and it curses, it makes it rain on the just and the unjust alike. This is the God that I'm talking about. This was the God that I had been looking for my whole life, and Marcus just served it up to me on a silver platter. Said, here you go, Ollie. I know you've been looking for this, and it just fit. Like finding the perfect puzzle piece. It just fit right where I was missing it. And it was such a remarkable experience that I'll always be in his debt. I'll always be in Marcus Aurelius's debt. And for me, the only way I can really repay him is to spread the good news that he introduced to me, to share his messages, to share his advice and his insights and all the things that have made such a beautiful, positive impact in my own life. So there you go. Happy birthday, Marcus. And as for the rest of you, don't forget to live well.